the High Elves done, or at least 1,000 points of High Elves done. Yeah, give or take a few. A lot of work went into those. I wouldn't like to guess at how many hours, but I think it would be fair to say that you end up spending easily hundreds of hours. It's not dozens of hours, it's more than that anyway, when it comes to painting those miniatures. But now that they're done, I'm really happy with them, and it makes you want to produce more. What I thought is have a quick look at the box where those miniatures came from, and where I got started with them. This is, of course, the boxed set for the 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battles. I never owned this at the time. This is something I picked up some years ago when it was still quite easy to get hold of these things on eBay. So after finishing the High Elves, what do you move on to next with regard to the Fantasy Battles stuff? Well, it would make sense to tackle the Orcs and Goblins that came in the box with the Elves. The problem is that is a bag of 32 monopose Goblin archers, and then there's a bag here of 32 monopose Goblin spears. Now they're nice miniatures, for sure. They're classics, well loved. I suppose these would be night goblins with their caps on. But it's quite a daunting task painting that many, and you'd have to break it down into smaller sets. I don't think batch painting 32 or 64 miniatures all in one go is doable. And I've got an idea of how to approach this in a way that will be more interesting for me. But I thought for now, just have a quick look at the box and see what's in there. So of course, dice for playing the game, some plastic stands, and these are for the card cutouts for those more elaborate units or characters that they couldn't include in the box, obviously, just for cost. So there's Altharion on his griffin, and then the repeater bolt thrower. I mean, it's nice to have been able to upgrade these with the metal miniatures. It does make a big difference. And then likewise for the Orcs and Goblins, there you've got Grom the Paunch on his chariot. And then that's from a white dwarf. That's one of these templates for working out what happens if you kill a tree man and it falls on a unit. Always nice illustrations though. And then we have some terrain, or some buildings at least. When I first got this, these items, a couple of them had been glued together, so there's a bit of glue on them, but it came apart quite well. And I'm quite looking forward to putting these back together and doing a base for them. So you get a little part of a watchtower, and then there's a little farmhouse building type thing there. Then there's the stone thrower for the orcs, and I've got one of those also in metal now. Templates for weapons. Just lovely how vibrant they get these things, the colours. Some more templates, and then the orc shaman or shaman on a wyvern or wyvern. I've managed to get this now through the made to order scheme that GW were doing as part of their Old World releases. It would have been really difficult to get that, certainly on eBay at a decent price, so I've managed to get that now also. So I've got all the bits to do full paint job on the Orcs and Goblins for the set, if and when I want to tackle it. And then we'll have the magic cards. I think there's meant to be 12 in the set. Maybe tell me if I've got all the right ones. The Claw of Nagash, Doomfire Ring, Staff of Lightning, the Horn of Urgok, the Black Amulet, the Golden Helm of Atrazar, the Sword of Swift Slaying, the Axe of Grom, Dispel Magic Scroll, Destroy Magic Scroll, the Sword of Teclis, and then the Dark Mace of Death. So hopefully that's all the correct ones that were meant to be in the set. Then movement cards or trays. But I've been 3D printing mine just bespoke to fit the numbers that I have, because I am adding in the command miniatures, a standard, a champion, a musician. So these are set up just for the plain plastic miniatures only. And then a couple of rules play sheets to try and help you remember what to do. And then you've got the books and the handouts. So how to play Warhammer, printed on 4 sheets, if only it was that easy. I guess it gets you going with a couple of scenarios just to get a feel for how to play it. And then we have Warhammer Armies, a selection of fantasy army lists. Nigel Stillman, of course, doing these. So I guess this was just to help you get started before the actual army books were released. Seems to cover all the factions that came out. Undead. Is that the Wood Elves there? Yeah, the Wood Elf. Undead Army. Skaven. Chaos. Orc and Goblin. Dark Elf. Dwarf. High Elf. The Grand Army of Bretonia. And a few pages on the Empire. So they pretty much knew what they were going to be doing. I suppose only the Chaos Dwarfs were added later. And then there's a painting guide to help you get started with your painting. A lot of inspiration to be found in here. It's the sort of thing you looked at all those years ago and admired and wanted to own them, but you just couldn't paint as good as this. Obviously Mike McVeigh doing some instructions. And basically I was looking at this book and the army book for direction on my own High Elves. I want them to look as close as I can, at least, to what you see in the White Dwarf or in these books here. That's my aim. I can't quite match it, but if I can try and get close to it, that's the main thing. Info and preparation. And I think there, that little sequence, the final miniature is not to the same standard that Mike McVeigh paints elsewhere, but I think that's actually quite a good standard to aim for anyone intimidated by painting. I think that's quite an approachable finish. The colours are reasonably flat, there's not too much shading or highlighting on them. And as long as you can keep your colours to the different areas, they'll look great, especially all ranked up. Yeah, there's your High Elf Spearman. So I think I've managed to get something not too far away from that. But yeah, it would be the Orcs and Goblins next. They do look good. I think I've got some of these older metal sculpts, so I would be able to put together a unit of the Orcs. There you go, that's the sort of thing you would look at when you were younger and think, wow. What was great about the White Dwarf magazine is they would show you how to make things like this building. There'd be step-by-step guides for things like that. I don't own any Empire miniatures at all. The only two things I've got the War Wagon and the Steam Tank, because I really liked them. And of course the nice backdrops as well. And you'll have seen the one that I painted just the other day to use in those videos earlier, showing the High Elves. I think my one's a bit more punchy, maybe too strong. I think it's maybe wiser to have something that's more distant and faded to help push that back into the background. I think my one's maybe a bit too strong. I could maybe put some sort of wash over it or do something with it, but I'll see. And then you have the battle for Mogthrond Pass, and this gives you various scenarios to play using what came in the box. And John Blanche illustration there that you could look at for ages, picking out all the details. The Doom Divers there up at the top. I can only imagine that they've all discussed what's going to be coming up in terms of the miniature releases and the various designs that they're doing. Or maybe the likes of John is the original creator of these things, just out of his imagination, and then they turn into miniatures. I'm not sure what direction things went in, but there must be 100 characters on there, if not more. Amazing. So there you get your army list to play with. How to set out your table. It would be nice to make all these sorts of terrain pieces so that you can recreate that kind of thing. And then we get to the kind of bigger books in the set. So the Battle Bestiary, I can never say that correctly. There's that Trish Carden Dreamin'. I do have that. I've got the two, and then also the larger one for the Wood Elves, the character one, which name escapes me right now, but I do have all three. Do through or something like that, I think it is. Amazing. So this is Rick Priestley and Andy Chambers writing up all this. So a bit about the Warhammer World there. The threat of chaos. Beneath the world there are darker things than all the fear and terror of man can conjure. Amazing writing, of course, throughout. And then your map of the old world, where you can imagine all these things taking place. A bit about the race of men, the Empire, Britannia, Kislev, and the Norse. And then you get a breakdown of some of these unit types. And the dwarfs. And throughout all these beautiful little pencil studies, I presume that they are larger in their original form and then scaled down, especially ones like this. I imagine that's quite a big picture in real life. for me, far better imagery than the stuff I see now. More fun, more character, I think. Trolls. High Elves. I mean, look at that one. I mean, it's off in the distance, but there's plenty of detail on the kind of high elf city. Under siege, perhaps. Some of the elves drawn, especially by John Blanche, I often think they look quite manic, almost sinister. The halflings. Orcs and goblins. So you can see John Blanche has really established a lot of this world with his vision. And what's so nice to see is the way that the miniatures really do reflect this. You know, those stone trolls look like that. Of course the night goblins look like that, the squigs. I've managed to pick up quite a few. I've got some of the black orcs, I've got a unit of those. I've got some of the savage orcs, the savage orc boar boys, I've got those. So much variety and character in the range of miniatures. And then when you add in the night goblins, you know, you have a really interesting army laid out. It's just the numbers that are off-putting, the amount of painting involved. Here you've got a skirmish between what looks to be forest goblins and some chaos faction there. Whole 2 pages on the rules for Night Goblin fanatics here. And then Chaos. Some really amazing art included here. And some of the special rules for the different Chaos gods. Beastmen, Dragon Ogres, I've got 5 of these, classic miniature. The Minotaurs, and Greater Demons. Yeah, who thought all this up? Some pages on dragons, types of dragons, and the Dark Elves. And then giants. These are fun rules when they fall down. All the various attacks that they can do. Yell and ball. Stuff into bag. And then the Skaven. ogres, and then the undead, which I really would like to get going with that as a faction for painting. I sort of feel like you could probably paint a couple of units of skeletons relatively easily using washes or contrast paints. And they've got some great units as well. Lots of character. And then into the monsters. And the Wood Elves. And what I like about all these factions is they have their own themes, their own types of units. Everything's unique. There's not much overlapping really. If you want to, you can create really fluffy army lists. You know, your Wood Elves can have elves riding hawks, and there's great eagles, and there's tree men, and all sorts of things. I think that's what's fun about collecting these things and painting them. And there's the classic Marauder Giant, which also got one of those through the made to order. And then of course the rulebook. Quick flick through here. This is the same image that's on that 3rd edition rulebook which I had at the time. I remember loving that book, just going through it. I've still got it, I still look through it. It's just absolutely packed full of amazing illustrations and photos of miniatures and table layouts and things. It's just such an intriguing cover because of all what's going on. It's absolute chaos, and it's probably meant to be like that. Because it wraps around the back on the actual rulebook for 3rd edition, and there's more going on there, but they've managed to feature a bit of everything in there. Yeah, it's a really nice layout with the river running through it. Again, lots of things to try and recreate and make. Try and match these setups. So the game design, yeah, Rick Priestley, Bill King and Andy Chambers. Jeff Taylor doing the box. John Sibick on the cover here. And then Mark Gibbons, Dave Gallagher, Wayne England and Dave Andrews throughout. So the contents of the box, what you get, how to put together your buildings, and more John Bland chart there, an Empire army facing some sort of enemy archers, it looks like. So starting the game, setting up. Here's your terrain generator chart, so you can kind of see the things you need. Yeah, here's a couple of miniatures here that I recognise. Well, I recognise from this pencil drawing. I've got these Champions of Chaos, the Nurgle Champions, the fly-headed one. And the miniature looks just like that, it's got that exact axe. And this guy's the same. He's holding a gun in the miniature, and I can see it down there also, it looks like a revolver. So is that guy, I've got all these. Be interesting to know if this came first. I presume this came first, and then I take it Jess Goodwin sculpted them, using this as a bit of inspiration, I take it. I've got that, and there's one through there, I've got that as well, so I can actually see them. They've really been sculpted well, or drawn well from the sculpts, whatever way around it happened. So there's your turn sequence, movement phase. Seems to be a lot to the game. You know, I expect it to take hours to play, and you would need plenty of room to do it. The shooting phase. So that's when my High Elves would come into their own. Rune chart. See, there already is those Chaos Dwarfs that you would recognise from the miniatures that eventually came out almost perfectly. You know, you've got the blunderbusses there, and then the axemen pretty much established in that drawing. Hand-to-hand combat phase. Little arrangement there of pretty much the units that you would have from the box set. I think if all painted up, it'd be quite an impressive layout. I presume around about 1,000 points per side. A strange mix on here. It looks like, I presume that's an orc. Because I can see some orcs or goblins down here, but then what appears to be a chaos dwarf. And then some bats. So I mean, there's a bit of, just a bit of a stramash of factions there. And psychology. Which plays a big part. All of these effects play a big part in the game. And a section on the weapons, types of weapons. And your heroes and wizards. It's a very clean pencil drawing that. Notice that all of these illustrations, they don't tend to have the signature of the artist, whereas in the 3rd edition rulebook, I think pretty much every image in the book has a little initials next to them, so you know exactly who did them. I mean, they are at least all named here. I quite like it when you see a signature, even if it's just the initials. I think it's nice to see that. And then we get to the colour section. So these look to be quite early miniatures, along with the painting style, that kind of more muted brown, dirtier finish. Kind of 3rd edition look. And then you get to the brighter 4th edition coming in here. And I was just referencing into this when I was painting mine. Trying to zoom in and see what colour to paint a gem or a belt or whatever it was. Yeah, there's your 2 units of Night Goblin Archers and then the Goblin Spears. So slightly more miniatures on show there, but I mean, yeah, they've got the metal ones for the command. So that's quite a big job painting that. Although you can see that they haven't gone overboard on them. You know, there's not black and white checks or flame patterns on these ones. These ones are a bit more straightforward. You know, they're all wearing the same coloured clothes. So you could maybe get through them aiming for something like that. So then you move to the metal ones, the Kev Adams sculpts. and the painter, who I presume is Mike McVeigh, but it could be someone else. They've taken the time to start painting on additional features like the crescent moon, the checkers. They do look good. Always like the expression on this one. I think it would be tough to try and do 32 painted, with flame patterns and checkers. I think that would be an awful lot of painting. Maybe for one or two. I always thought they were very impressive. Knights of the White Wolf and the Regiment of Knights Panther. Again, so much character. And the banner is amazing actually on there. I'd like to see a better view of that. I presume someone's painted that, like a skeleton riding. Well, it looks like a lion there, but it's really well done, that one. Here's a sort of further development of your High Elf army. So you've got your spearmen and archers that come in the box, and then you've got your cavalry you could add to it. And again, the custom High Elf buildings. There's a nice backdrop there. And all those goblin wolf riders. The troll slayers yet to get their orange beards at this stage. But that's a lot of goblin wolf riders actually, there's dozens of them. And then painting skeletons, yeah, this is what I'm talking about, the undead. It would be nice to do a couple of big units of skeletons. Some instructions on how to paint them. There's the old barn, there's a White Dwarf magazine that tells you I actually made that back, what would have been the very late 80s. I guess I remember making that with a cereal box. I do have this wheel now in lead that would allow me to redo it. I don't have it now, of course, it's long gone, but I could have a go at some point, who knows. There's instructions on how to build this large stables in one of the White Dwarfs also. Again, I do like that skeletons. The cavalry coming across the bridge. Yeah, a little section on terrain. So again, you kind of need this, so you can get your archers and weapons up on a raised area. Relatively easy to make. Says me, I've not made one yet. Yeah, this is more kind of backdrop that I've done, but my one is probably way too bright compared to that. Always like that halfling hot pot. It's a lot of fun in the halflings, the way they've been depicted. And the wizards always look so good, the colours, the theming, distinctive appearances, it's really amazing. And then we're back into the rules. Rules for monsters. Flying and aerial combat. So there's a lot to think about in these games. The chariots. Snotling pump wagon. I do have that tucked away somewhere. And section on war machines. I guess a lot of these rules would be superseded by what came in the army books eventually. I presume you would go with what comes in the army book for these things. Skaven weapons. And then put on standards and musicians. I'm not sure if I would really want to get into that with the miniatures. I hardly like touching them as it is for fear of rubbing off paint. The idea of reforming them during a game and changing the formation isn't that appealing to me. Kind of want to just leave them in a display cabinet and then that's it. A section on the buildings, you can go inside buildings and destroy buildings. And then demons. And then magic, which of course there's a whole supplement on magic with its own rulebook and dozens if not hundreds of cards. Skirmishers. And then you've got your points values at the end. So that's the rulebook. So that's it for the video. There's plenty for me to look at and decide upon what I want to tackle next. It would be nice to complete the box, get those goblins done, and then, you know, add in the upgraded metal miniatures also. That would be good to see all finished, but that is a lot of work. Those High Elves took me a long time to do. It wasn't just a matter of weeks or months. You know, I've been working on them on and off for probably a couple of years, and that's how I like to do things. I like to break it up and work on different projects, but I think it is important to try and finish things. So plans are probably to tackle this. Got some stuff to do for Man of War. I want to complete the Necromunda box set. I've already done the Goliath gang, but I want to do the Orlok gang. So there's plenty to do in terms of the old Hammer stuff that I've got. I would recommend it if you're thinking of having a go at painting these things. Give it a go, but be prepared to spend a lot of time on it. Rushing it for me doesn't really help. I think you've got to put the time in so that you're really happy with the end result. To your own ability, of course, but you know, give it your best shot. And when you do complete it, there is a lot of satisfaction in doing it and seeing them all laid out. And there's a lot of fun in terms of just getting nice photos set up, you know, with your backdrops and your terrain, and sharing those online or Instagram or on Discord or whatever. So it is worth having a go, but you've probably got to plan out what you're going to do and try and stick to it. But anyway, I've probably gone on long enough. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.